And Elise, it's a nice conference.
Very, yeah.
Yeah, you've done a very good job. Yeah, and
hopefully everything will go smoothly and.
Yeah. Okay. I guess is it? I guess we're there now. We are. It seems like me, out from what I can see from the time slots, that we have good time for both the presentations and discussions. And I guess 15 minutes is the sort of. I guess you can kind of see it a bit yourself, but I saw that if we sort of divide it roughly by 3, we'll end up 25 minutes or so. So we can aim for, I guess, 15 minutes presentation and 10 minutes for discussion. But I guess if we go a bit over time here, it's not that. I mean, for the presentations, it's not necessarily that bad because we have ample time for the discussions. But I guess we should try to aim for 15. 15 minutes. I guess, yeah, I guess we're there. So I guess I can, well, I'll just introduce it, Elisa, yeah? Or thank you so much for coming to this first of 2 sessions revolving around the theme of the geographies of responsible innovation. In this session here, we have 3 presenters. See if I have the names correctly here now. It's Gunhild first, Gunhild Vedum, who will start on the retrowation process, resource integration of old and new resources. Before we'll hear from Antti Mainpa. I'm probably not pronouncing that correct at all, but he's going to talk to us about how to simulate sustainable transition, stakeholder analysis as a basis of mobilization of stakeholders discovered from the GETA project. Before Dace Steffenberger will talk to us present to us about innovation and regional specialization in Kursene. So I guess we'll start off then with you, Gunhild. The floor is yours, and if you need to share a presentation, I think that should be fine to do on your own here. I hope so. So then I'm going to give the word to you, Gunhild, to start this session.
Thank you very much. Thank you for following this section, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to present my paper. I'm just working a little bit to get my presentation. Just a moment.
I can only see you now, Elise. I'm not sure if that's... Oh, there we go.
Can you see the PowerPoint just now?
Yeah.
Yes.
I can see,
Yeah.
I can see it.
Yeah. You may, in my PhD, I developed the concept of retrowation. And in this session, I would like to present retrowation and resource integration and how the knowledge of retrowation can be implemented in responsible research and innovations, RRI. And I'd like to begin by a definition of innovation. So innovation is defined as the development and implementation of new ideas, and changes are happening increasingly rapidly, and in the line with this trend, innovation research has also changed, especially regarding innovation in services. And what characterizes retrowation and how does retrowation take place are my 2 main research questions. And I will also discuss how retrowation can be integrated in responsible innovation, research and innovation. And with a high degree with a high degree of technological innovation, there has been a radical shift in service innovation, and technology is a key driving force for innovation in general. At the same time, there has been a little room for integrating craft-based quality and tradition into modern innovation theory. So this aspect is also relevant for integrating retrowation in the RRI perspective. This graph is in the plan illustrates the use of the term innovation in print and web-based media in Norway, and the fact that innovation has become an everyday concept that is used frequently and in many ways indicates that new, more precise academic concepts are needed within this subject area. And 70% of all innovations are service innovation. And most innovation research deals with technology and product innovations in production-oriented companies. And digitization reduced the kind of personal contact which we see in this photo. Elements such as sales reps from the farmer are reintroduced and can provide added value for individual segments or on special occasions. A gap has been identified regarding tradition as tangible and intangible resources in the innovation process. And I would like to fill in this gap with my research, specifically concerning retrowation. So retrowation, the term retrowation has for this purpose been defined as innovation born of tradition, involving combinations of tangible and intangible and new and old resources. And service innovation is one of the areas in which more knowledge is needed. My research is focusing on the fields of innovation research and in the local food context. And retrowation, this means that an object or service from the past gets translated and put to use in a new way. And the value proposition is important in this research and focusing on that. And value propositions are defined as resource configurations that promise value creation in use. And I move on to talk about innovations with origins in tradition. Technological development has had an enormous impact on service innovation. More and more of communication and commerce is happening digitally. But at the same time, as this development is taking place, personal service, craftsmanship, and the good stories are valued, mainly based in local places and local histories. I have taken a closer look at what has happened in the local food industry when new resources are combined with the old. And retrovations may be pertinent to technology, products, production methods, services, or concepts. And retrovations can be developed by individuals or by groups or companies. And like other innovations, they can be developed in open environments. Understanding retrovation within a local food context has provided additional knowledge about the components of retrovation and how local historical knowledge has been obtained and used to create retrovations in an area that is unexplored. And it has not been addressed in retrowation in innovation research. So I argue that this also is a new micro level for better understanding RRI.
Excuse me, Gunhild.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, are you going to change different slides, because we only see your first slide?
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for telling me, because I'm I'm going through my presentation and I thought that okay.
If you want to,
Okay.
Gunhild, you can just tell me which slide you're on, and I can.
Yes, I'm on slide. I do you see the slides, different
Yes.
slides now?
We have
Yes.
to click
yes.
on them ourselves. It looks like.
Yeah.
I thought it was just me here, but yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
If you just give a little, when you change slide, then.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just how can I go back and explain? Because maybe this is important, that retrowation
Yeah, so if you just tell us
Sorry.
which slide you're on now,
yes,
then we can.
Yes, I'm on slide 10.
10. Okay. Then you can just give a little heads up when you, yeah.
Yeah.
Next slide or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So this this model illustrates the just one. The dimensions of the value proposition. The horizontal axis illustrates tangible and intangible resources, and the vertical axis illustrates new versus old resources. The value proposition is a combination of the various components. So what characterizes retrowation in a local food context is as follows: the local food and how it is experienced, and the brand and the visual identity, and the story and the storytelling, often based in a local history. And the place identity is very strong, and finally how and where they produce and distribute their products is very important. So the focus on the place in food production is stronger or has becoming more important in the last 20 years in Norway. And this led us to this model, which I developed based on the case study. So this is what is characterizing retrowation in the model. And to answer the question, how does retrowation take place? A theoretical foundation in the service dominant logic with emphasis on resource integration helped me to code the data based on the 6 components I just talked about. So that's I went very deep into each of the components and studied how they innovated them. And Chef from Haukeli, which is one of the cases in my research, is the chair with associated products and services has been developed as an overall concept with a common strategy for values, products, services, branding, and communication. And the development of the brand concept began with the responsible person in a staff department and not in the main office, with a project manager and with various sub-projects and managers and participants during the innovation process, where the local knowledge about how to produce and how to produce the cheese and how to make the goat milk quality better was very, very important in this process. So resource integration in retrowation is about combining new and old and tangible and intangible resources into new and improved value proposition. And production and innovation and marketing are the 3 of an organization's main activities for integrating resources. And in this retrowation innovation process, I think it's the focus on the local capacity is very, very important. And how does retrowation happen? And how does the restoration happen in this case in the food industry? It's a complex process. A value proposition consists of many components and that require different resources in an innovation process. And these resources can be an old space and an inventive or an inventive person to develop a new place of business during the analysis. 4 types of restoration are identified in this model. So it's the market stimulating restoration, which is based on in the markets, and it's the tangible based restoration, which is based in tangible resources. For instance, in the milk, the goat milk, or in all the location. And story-based restoration, which is based in all stories, but they're made into a new form of communication. And competence-based restoration is also very, very important in restoration process. I'm looking at the time here.
You're good.
And,
you have a few minutes. 5 minutes.
And the food industry was selected because it's an industry that is characterized by high rate of innovation, and because food reflects much of what we are focused on. The food industry is a traditional industry that is mass production oriented and consists of a combination of primary and technological industries. The food industry is also one where the link between tangible and intangible innovation is very clear. And innovation in a more sustainable way is important in the food industry of the whole world. So the restoration process is a dynamic process of resource integration and the exchange between different types of restoration. And this figure aims to visualize how resources are integrated into the restoration process. And I argue that restoration is a contribution to innovation and to sustainable innovation theory as well. So the results of the research confirm that through resource integration, value propositions are created, and the customer must collaborate with the company for value creation to take place. And looking at the innovation process as resource integration of new and old resources can give a new perspective into responsible research and innovation on a micro level. And value propositions consist of configurations of tangible and intangible resources. So the importance of collaboration is confirmed, and the empirical results also show that the ability to collaborate is of great importance in developing and promoting value propositions. So then I'm just wondering if you have any comments or questions.
Thank you, Gunnel. The floor is now open to questions. Yeah. I can start. Well, if you want to formulate some questions. Thank you so much for a very interesting presentation, Gunnel, on the concept of retrowation, which is a concept that I guess we don't hear that often in innovation studies. No. But it's very exciting to listen to your research and what you've done. I have put down a few here, but I can start with one. Actually, we can start with the sort of the definition of retrowation. Why did you see the need sort of to Oh, okay. There is a question here, but we can. Okay, we'll take the floor first, and then I can say my question.
Okay, I put up my hand, so I guess I'm. Thanks for the presentation. It's very interesting. I'm also interested in talk about the retrowation process, and coming from the regeneration system kind of studies. Question is the retrowation process taking place in firms, of course, but what about the innovation system, the knowledge infrastructure, the policy tools, the institutional infrastructure, and so on? Do you add the innovation system or something like that describes the environment in your models?
No, thank you for the question, Arne. It's very interesting, but I have focused on the micro level in my research. So that's because it's in this way the gap I found was really on how to integrate different resources on the micro level in the study. But in the case the cases I followed was one case I just presented at the Chevron Haukeli, and the other case from Abdem. It's a cheese producer and more. Yeah, it's a old store, and they have make it as a more a big center for cheese up in Gudbrandsdalen. It's the system is also very important, but I haven't brought that into my research. So that's maybe something to follow up later.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Please raise your hands and I'll look for them. I guess I can kind of just follow up from what you said there then, Alma, because I also found the sort of relevance for geography here quite interesting, and also I think it could add something to the innovation literature, or the geographies of innovation literature, in the sense that you're looking at sort of how local places and spaces are a part of shaping and competences, relationships, stories, meaning systems are helping in shaping this respiration process, because like these things then need to happen in those particular places, because they have local knowledge about the production of the cheese, for example, but also sort of associate meaning to it. I guess it was more a comment than a question, but I think that could be interesting to look more deeper into. I also have a question on I have a question on the sort of the concept of retrowation as opposed to innovation. If innovation is sort of like defined as the definition of, or a combination of old and new resources, what did you use the concept of retrowation, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, and it's maybe because of I just a moment, I will go back to this model, because I think that the need is because innovation has been a very broad definition, and it's the need of both the tangible and the intangible, and the old and the new resources is integrated in retrowation. So the old resources, and to bring the old resources into new ways, and maybe they have been out of the market for a while as well. For instance, this food markets, and the way to distribute and to produce food has been out of the production or haven't been used for many years, and then they go and find them and take them into new ways. So that's one way it's a more specific description of innovation, I will say.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer. There's a time, sort of a time dimension here, in the sense that when you take up this new or the old ideas into new contexts.
Yes.
Yeah. Any other questions to Gunnel? No. Okay, just one final question then, because I have one thing left on my table here, and then I'll stop. Okay, now there's a question from Antti. Go ahead, Antti.
Yeah, not necessarily a question, but just a suggestion that one way to look at macro level this retrowation might be windmills, how they were used to produce energy or produce some mechanical stuff, and now they are used for energy production. So I think that would be really interesting. That popped just into my mind when looking at this presentation. So perhaps that is something to look in the future.
Yeah, thank you very much. And
Thanks.
that's very interesting. And thank you very much for all the interesting comments, because it's making me new ways to look at retrowation in the future.
Okay, just a final question then, if nobody else has anything. Within a sort of innovation literature, there's also this concept of symbolic knowledge. Is that something that you were sort of considering also applying in this context, like how the sort of more symbolic knowledge bases were activated during this case, or the like associated meanings and so on?
Yeah, I think that's a very, very interesting question, and it's really relevant. So it's a theory I can bring into my research, and I got that comment earlier as well from some colleagues here.
Yeah, no, but it was a very, very interesting presentation, Gunnel. Let's all give a round of applause, if I can find the applause button there. Hang on.
Thank you very much.
Okay, then we move on to the next presentation, and that is Antti Mainpää. I think you have to pronounce this yourself. I'm really sorry.
That is actually very well.
It is, okay, that's good.
Yeah.
And you're going to present to us a presentation with the title "How to Simulate Sustainable Transition: Stakeholder Analysis as a Basis of Mobilization of Stakeholders." And you're going to share the discoveries from the Greta project. So
Yes.
the floor is yours, Antti.
Yeah, thanks. Can somebody remove the first presentation? At least I see it yet. I cannot share mine before, or can I? I actually can. Oh, this is good. I can actually, yeah. So
and then we'll have see what happens now with the presentation. But if the same thing happens, I'll let you know, and you can just tell me when you change slides.
Can you see the slides now?
Yes.
Yeah, very good. So yeah, we are sharing our discoveries from Greta project. So my name is Antti Mainpää. I'm coming from University of Vaasa, from Finland, and together with my colleagues Seija Virkkala, Auge Marjussen, and Juuso Jääskeläinen, we were looking at green transformation and basically how to involve stakeholders into it. That was kind of the idea. And this was this Greta project, which roughly translate as green transformation, a policy tool for regional smart specialization. So we were looking at smart specialization and tools that could help in these new smart specialization activities in the upcoming programming period, which consists of course these more sustainable solutions in many ways. And we were also looking at this regional level, like what is the role of the regions in green transformation. And this of course relates with this sustainable transition to some extent, and is of course also its own phenomena, because this green transformation is more based on this energy transformation from fossil fuels towards just renewables. But today's presentation is, I will go very briefly through green transformation, what it means and how we have approached it via this multi-level perspective theory. Then we discuss how we have been making the stakeholder analysis and how it helps basically in this green transformation to some extent at least. So what it is basically is, as I said, the transition from fossil fuels towards renewable fuels. And of course, this means many different things. It might mean in some regions more solar power or wind power, in some cases hydrogen development or geothermal energy or different these water or maritime energy solutions. So a lot of different things, and for different regions it is very different picture how this green transformation manifests. But in this Greta project, we were looking at two intervention areas or kind of like industries. We looked at green energy technologies themselves, so the producers of green energy technology products and systems, and also the circular economy. So those were the two main focus areas for the project. And we have approached this green transformation by using this scales multi-level perspective. And of course, the original theory was more looking at the role of innovations in making change in the society and how it looks like, how it might make these changes. And we kind of our thought process was that we use this because we are looking at basically green innovations. So this is applicable to this case as well. And how we approach this is that we looked at the landscape level. Of course, there's lots of activities happening on the landscape level at the moment, lots of political programs, lots of pressure towards making these changes on this regime level. And we see regime level as a kind of regional level, but on the other hand, it's not just like, it depends on the intervention area to some extent as well. Because if you look at, for example, this energy technology, it might be a cluster within a region where it is, of course, much more regionally based solutions that are looked after. But of course, if you look at circular economy, it might consist of a lot of different actors that are spread throughout the country or even have these global value chains. And of course, even these energy technology companies usually have global value chains, but we are looking at the regional level in order to make enhancements or improvement within this regional level. So that was the focus for this regime for us. And we were now developing a tool to look at niche level, so individual stakeholders, and how to make them part of this green transformation, how to attach them to different pathways, for example, towards green transformation. And we developed a tool for this reason. So in this picture, we can see these different arrows going all the way, and one big arrow, and we try to look how to make these small arrows perhaps into one big one. And how we did this is that we before that, what was this about this landscape level? So we of course looked at the big picture of the various things happening with this landscape level, pressure coming onward from for example, from the Sustainable Development Goals by the UN, but also, of course, this European Green Deal, which is very much related with European development activities. And we see that as quite useful background, because it doesn't just give you the stick, but also some carrots in the form of these European Green Deal investment funds and possibilities for example, smart specialization funds to be used on a regional level. So quite useful way to implement some actions on this green transformation. So this was the landscape level. And how we looked at these stakeholders and what is their position towards green transformation, we used this Mitchell's stakeholder typology. This theory was originally used for looking at companies, stakeholders, or these stakeholders, and how definitive they are, or how useful they are basically for individual companies. But we use this on a more like society-based idea that we could use the same categorization and look at individual stakeholders, their urgency, legitimacy, and power from not just companies, but also public organizations, universities, and NGOs. And the basic idea with this framework is to look for these three individual aspects of the stakeholders and try to find definitive stakeholders who are both, they have the ability, need, and willingness to act in transformation. And the idea why we are identifying these types of stakeholders is because they could be acting as some sort of leaders who could then start the pathways towards green transformation. So they are the ones that are most interesting, and their actions towards green transformation within on a regional level. So that was the basic idea. We of course had also these ideas that perhaps different stakeholders can develop towards, from dormant stakeholders towards definitive stakeholders. So this might also happen gradually during the time, but now focus is just on looking at how can we identify different types of stakeholders. So not too much on this path development within the field. We develop quite simple, I would say that simple tool for the stakeholder analysis. So we were looking at this urgency, legitimacy, and power aspects of individual stakeholders. Here we see that we have used one company as an example, so one company, and we looked at we also used a time perspective. So we were looking at 5 years ago what the situation was with urgency, legitimacy, and power, what it is currently, and what it will be in 5 years. And we used very simple calculation. So we just added the different values together in order to get this sort of one value for what the stakeholder level will be in 5 years, for example. So just adding these figures together. And we might have used more figures to get more details about how close different stakeholders are towards green transformation, but we use this simple scale of do they have any urgency, legitimacy, or power? Do they have some? And do they have like lots? And if I want to give an example, perhaps to demonstrate like the scale, of course, we understand that if the stakeholders have nothing to do with green transformation, or they are even against this green transformation, then they will have zero as their scale. But they might have some urgency, legitimacy, and power. This is usually the case. So they might be interested towards green transformation. They might have resources that they could use towards green transformation or similar things. But of course, the most interesting ones were the definitive stakeholders who would have this value of 6, because they are the ones who have resources, a willingness to act, and also have this need to act. And we can check later what types of stakeholders these are, because I think that is interesting. Here we have one example from our own case from Ostrobothnia, from Finland. So here we have individual or several companies, universities, public organizations, and NGOs, and what are their stakeholder levels. And we use this sort of traffic light colors to indicate the development. So the greener the result is, the better it is, basically. And we see that public organizations are the ones that are actually like in 5 years coming more towards aligning towards this. Of course, this is quite understandable if we think about this, for example, European Green Deal initiatives and policies, that they will have more funds to be used in this towards this green transformation. They of course also have the need to act because of political reasons, and they have the willingness to act because they are part of this these global policy programs and initiatives towards green future. But we see from this Ostrobothnian case that public organizations are quite kind of leading this transition, so to speak. We then looked also at companies because they need to be involved if we want to make a change. And what is interesting from this, now here we see the different cases that we had. So we had in total 6 different cases from four countries, 2 from Finland, 2 from Lithuania, 1 from Latvia, and 1 from Sweden. And here we see the results for companies, what is the current situation and what it might be in 5 years. And by the way, how we did how we looked at the figures, how we came up with them, was that we used regional experts who evaluated the main or the most like prominent stakeholders within the region who could be these leaders for green transformation. And when we had these initial numbers, we made this table that I showed you previously, this traffic light table. And that was then recycled with other regional stakeholders so that they could comment on the figures, so that we verified the results based on this. But initially there was experts making these lists of different stakeholders, and these ones were then verified. And now if I come back to this picture, so we know that the companies have urgency to some extent, they have legitimacy and power as well, but the legitimacy aspect is perhaps the one that is mostly missing in these cases if we look at them. And if we want to have definitive stakeholders, we of course need to have stakeholders which have which are definite by nature, and they are public organizations at the moment.
Sorry, you have 5 minutes left.
Yeah, thanks. So here we can see all the different stakeholder types or helices within all cases. And as this shows, public organizations indeed are also in this wider spectrum, leading this change to quite in all cases. Of course, universities to some extent are also following up, but I would still say that there are, of course, in some cases not that clear signals, but public organizations on the overall are the ones who are kind of leading this change. And now actually I'm able to wrap up our initial findings. So if we think about that, now we know that public organizations are the ones who are leading this way, and we have discovered who they are as well. Of course, we know the individual organizations that are behind these figures as well. And if we look at like how we could use this tool in regional development, of course, this will help the regional governments in the way that they can identify the individual stakeholders which are important and who should be involved in green transformation activities. That helps in that way as well. But it also is a way to identify those stakeholders indeed which are these definitive ones, and also perhaps look at how they could help, for example, smaller companies that are not necessarily very aware of these green transformation activities and actions like this. So it is a tool that helps by identifying stakeholders and what they are doing currently and will be doing probably in 5 years towards green transformation. And this is of course very useful for the developers themselves. But of course it is also one possibility to have a forum for discussion, because by showing these figures like we have done in the regions, we have shown these figures to regional stakeholders, other stakeholders as well, and they have been able to comment on, does it look like this? Is this true that the public organizations are leading the way now? And how do you see the big picture based on these figures? We have heard about, for example, that companies are now looking for collaboration with public organizations. Why do they want to do this? Well, they kind of are looking for this legitimacy, missing legitimacy, because it gives them credibility if they collaborate with public organizations. This is of course more prominent in energy technology business, because there you kind of have to have you are selling the solutions to governments as well. So it is more prominent probably there. But this is something that is kind of like also real. It is happening also in the, so to say, real life, that companies are coming more towards public organizations. And this could mean that in the future, because we have entrepreneurial discovery process that is part of smart specialization, that it could be used as this sort of forum where public and private interest, so public and private stakeholders, can discuss more about how they could find mutual solutions and how they could integrate themselves towards this happening green transformation within the region. So that, I think, is our main discoveries. And we will have a publication hopefully quite soon, and that is the name of the publication. And I also included this web page where you can then find it. And this is not a mistake. The original project was Lars, and Greta project is an extension of that project. So that is the right web page. So thanks.
Thank you so much, Antti, for a very interesting presentation. Are there any questions to Antti regarding this? Please raise your hands and I'll guide you. Okay. I can start, and then I'll give you some more time to think about if you have anything that you're wondering about. I think this was very interesting, Antti, and it's not always so easy to kind of engage with the multi-level perspective. If you're like, it's a sensible framework in a way, but it's also difficult to sometimes operationalize in research. But I was wondering if you could tell me a bit more about these numbers that you were meant, like the scores, really.
Yeah.
On the different stakeholders, and you already answered a bit of what I was wondering, which was like, how did you reach these numbers? And you were mentioning that you use technical experts.
Yeah.
I was wondering, could you tell me a bit more about this process? Like, how did this actually unfold? Was it did they go into sort of a dialogue amongst each other and sort of land on these scores? And also, if you can answer this, like, did you get the impression, or was it the case that they were based more on the sort of subjective opinions of the technical experts, or were they more based on sort of objective, that they had knowledge of what was going on, which projects they were involved in, what the strategies were, and so on? Was it more like sort of based on how they saw the potential for these different stakeholders to engage in more in the different sort of categories that you mentioned?
Yeah, so the experts were regional developers, so they knew quite well, for example, the biggest players in the region that of course were included, but also the ongoing projects and developments that were perhaps not the biggest companies or biggest organizations involved. So we tried to integrate them via this discussion, and there were some additions to this list also when we asked for first from the regional developers, and then we compiled this list based on their suggestions. Then we, of course, when we showed them to regional experts who were not in the creating this original list, they also added to it and also commented on some of these levels. One concrete example is this first NGO. The figures were not that high for this NGO originally, but it was later corrected because so many stakeholders said that is not correct. They are doing much more than what you have based on these numbers, that you have not perhaps understood what they are actually doing. And this helped us to correct this picture, so to speak. But of course, this might miss some startup companies or these sort of like, of course, if they are not known for the regional developers, it's very difficult to then have them here. So of course, this is not a perfect list of stakeholders. And the idea was, as I said, to look for the main, like the most probable actors. This would be much more a redder list if I would look for the whole of the region, because of course it's not the case with all companies and organizations that they are moving towards this way. So
thank you. Marku has a question.
Yeah, so thank you. It took me some time to understand myself if I have a question or comment or what am I thinking. First of all, it's highly interesting, and I appreciate a lot what you are doing, and I have been involved in doing evaluations for Vinnova, Swedish Innovation Agency, for several years now, and evaluating with a group of other experts the Winvext winners, as they call them in Sweden. And I have proposed several times, at least in 4 or 5 reports, that they should engage themselves in stakeholder analysis for network management, for better understanding the stakeholders. And I started thinking here that what is the core? Because if I remember correctly, stakeholders are the ones that according to stakeholder theory, the stakeholders are organizations or groups of actors that the organization can't exist, and the organization is for their stakeholders, and there is always the core. Somebody is having stakeholders, and in your case, it seems to me that you are having some kind of agency of things, thinking implicitly that the core is the transition process instead of an organization. And perhaps this is my question. If there is not a core organization whose stakeholders we are talking about, is there a danger that we are losing the ownership of the transition? There are only stakeholders instead of the core organization whose stakeholders we are focusing on, if you get my meaning. So
yeah, that was very good comment or question, or what was it? But yeah, this of course, because the original developers, these are linked with their stakeholders to many extent, but we also try to look for those stakeholders that are not necessarily at their networks at the moment, because that gives them the information that perhaps they should do something together with these types of stakeholders that they don't perhaps collaborate that much yet. But the idea kind of was to look at the regional developers and their stakeholders in this case, even though we had this green transformation intervention areas that we looked upon.
If I may continue, have you thought about putting them in the center, having the regional development agency or policy network or something like that? It would perhaps make it easier to understand, because at least I had the feeling that you only have stakeholders, and then it becomes not meaningless, but a bit more shallow. And I thought that in your case, you are focusing on regional development agencies, and in stakeholder theory, they are also talking about excluded stakeholders who should be invited to become more primary or secondary stakeholders. And yeah, but now I'm coming from network management perspective now, but yeah, very good what you are doing, highly interesting. Now I silence myself, sorry about that.
Yeah, very good comments, thanks for those.
We have a question from Alvin as well.
Yeah, thank you. This multi-level perspective is very interesting, but I find it hard to understand and how to use. So it's interesting to listen to you. But you focused on niches, as I understand it, and I have thought of niches as they are sheltered from market forces. Niches are technological or market niches that can develop, for example, green solutions and grow strong in these niches before they can enter up to the regime level. But do you also see niches as such more or less sheltered market or technological niches, or how does that enter into your model?
We kind of in this case we use this stakeholder analysis in a way that we were looking at individuals, but of course we were looking at these companies or organization level, and some of these of course organizations represent kind of niche, like new product, for example, that could help in this green transformation. So they kind of, even though we've looked at individual organizations, they kind of represented in some cases these type of niche products. But regarding this niche market, I don't know how to, I don't know about that too much. Like how I'm not sure if I can see them like this, some sort of isolated niches at this stage because of how we approach the thing. But that was a good comment. But.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, final question goes to Seija.
I want only to add this that it can be more than niches. It can be something developing something new, like this recycling or actually circular economy as a new aspect, which is not very developed, for instance, in these regions. And that's much broader than just waste and recycling. It's a really circular economy, and then it means also pilots and sustainability and energy efficiency. So it is part of this green shift or green transformation to make also totally new activities. Or then one other very big new activity is battery productions, which are bigger than niches. It's a new activities. That was that.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I guess in the interest of time that we'll move on to the last presentation. But before that, we have to give also Antti a good applause.
Thanks.
This is fun. I wish there were more emojis too. So then we are going into the last presentation for this session. And that's going to be by Dace Steffenberger. Is that correct? And it's Innovation and Regional Specialization in COSEM. The floor is yours, Dace.
Thank you very much for possibility to be here. I just tried to upload the presentation. Is it? You can see the presentation?
Yeah, we can see.
Okay, I will try to go through from beginning. One more time, good afternoon. It's very nice to be here and make my presentation. My name is Dace Steffenberger. I am lecturer of Ventspils University of Applied Sciences and guest scientific assistant of Latvian Academic of Sciences, and as well as a researcher in our university. My co-author is Professor Birta Sloka from University of Latvia, and my presentation today will be about innovation and regional specialization in Kurzeme. I am living in this region all my life and 25 years working in higher education institution, and therefore I'm much more interested in this development of local community and regional development. About relevance and tasks and methods, we are living in so-called VUCA world right now for a longer period of time, but last 2 years showed that uncertainty is by our side more often than ever before. And if we're talking about goal, that it is suggest possible scenarios for Kurzeme region, which is one of five planning regions in Latvia and one of 6 statistical regions in Latvia as well. Tasks are evaluation of meaning of innovation in regional development and specialization, and other task was analyze entrepreneurs' attitude changes for entrepreneurship development in this region. Methods we have used surveys and survey data analysis and analysis of statistical data of region and entrepreneurship. Regional policy of Latvia 2021 to 2027 defines balanced development in all regions as a priority, but not always it is taken into account when it comes to realization of these plans. Latvia is a very monocentric state, and it means that more than half of population lives in capital region, and also gross domestic product of Riga and Riga region is 130 35% from whole gross domestic product, and Kurzeme and other regions only 60 to 70%. Kurzeme is one of regions as Latvia, which is located in western part of Latvia. Our area is about 16,000 square kilometers, and population on January 2021 was for about 218,000 of inhabitants. In comparing with whole population of Latvia, it's 1.89 million. Population, and it is about 14,000 less than a year before. And the area is 64 square kilometers. In Kurzeme region, it's interesting thing that 365 kilometers is the Baltic coast area, and there is only two big cities, Liepa and Ventspils, and these cities are port cities. We are facing problems that workforce is moving to capital city and region around it, and also other countries. And only 29% of Kurzeme population are living in rural area. By doing our research, I'm also doing my PhD right now, and I did some theoretical perspective observations, and in traditional economy defines that supply and demand as the key factors of economic development. We came to idea that innovative entrepreneurship, it means the most important part is idea. And during these theoretical studies, I came to conclusion that innovation today is more used in terms of changes through times from Schumpeter's creative destruction and innovation in products and process. And the last thing, which is related to innovation today, this artificial intelligence and digital transformation, and its impact on society, as World Economic Forum defined that we need some moral compass of use of artificial intelligence. We have a lot of tools to manage our time, but it doesn't mean that we have, therefore, much more time. From theoretical perspective, also, we define the differences of innovative and traditional entrepreneurship and divide them into 6 factors, which is related to organizational structure, management style, financial management, human resource management, most important resources, also state support and tendencies of dissemination. And if we are talking about state support, that traditional entrepreneurship, of course, uses more tax policies, and this entrepreneurship environment is important. But for innovative entrepreneurship, these business incubators and cooperation, like Triple Helix and other helixes, right now. And one more thing I would like to add, that if traditional entrepreneurship is more like globalized, then in this innovative entrepreneurship, especially in our region, I think it is more localized, close to area, which helps to develop this entrepreneurship. Municipality reform were organized in Latvia this year, but to merge in municipalities. But innovative enterprises were analyzed in previous year in Kurzeme. Therefore, maybe these 18 municipalities are left. And labor force survey represents figures related to human resources in regions from perspective of regional development, interesting aspects are employed persons by region of job location and employed persons residing and working in the same region. Riga and Riga region has more than 58% of job location, and other regions are less than 40% left. Knowledge-based knowledge-intensive services or innovative companies, as we have researched, are located mostly, if we're talking about Kurzeme region, they are located mostly in two biggest cities of region, the same in Liepāja and Ventspils. And it is related to, as I mentioned, these business incubators and environment around them. And then we made some conclusions based on theoretical perspective as well as this research of a practical part. Then ecosystem of innovation and economic development are related to human resources. And innovative enterprises, what showed figure in the previous slides, are developed more in regional cities, closer to infrastructure and environment. Cooperation between these actors involved in this process and dialogue with state institutions and stakeholders.
Sorry, 5 minutes left. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. is crucial for I just is better in local and because at the moment this cooperation is better in local and municipal level than in macro or state level, and it is a quite big challenge for our economy. And regions are very good environment for startups, digital technology enterprises, possibilities of remote work. This COVID pandemic showed that in case of need of social distancing, people start looking for possibilities to work and stay also in not so populated areas. And Kurzeme region, we will have, while we have internet connection almost everywhere, is good choice for balance of work and life. And tourism companies what had proposed possibility for distancing, for social distancing. For example, guest houses have very good year previous year. Regional specialization should be defined related to region's competitive advantage, but we have to take in account also natural resources, location, and specialization of human resources in this region. For example, there are municipalities at Baltic Coast area, and according to that, there are more enterprises of fishing industry. Higher education institutions are one factor of triple helix model of innovative entrepreneurship, and in Kurzeme we had 2 universities, but in Liepāja and Ventspils also, but higher education reform now is organized in Latvia, and therefore there will be some changes. We are still Ventspils, we are still remain University of Applied Sciences, but there are big challenges, especially in financing of science, and nevertheless, higher education institution plays significant role of startup development. We have business incubators also in Kurzeme, and higher education institutions take part in program innovation grants for students in order to organize new ventures. We did another research previous year about possible changes and challenges in entrepreneurship in region and future, and most challenges were listed as follows: that first one, acquiring a new management leadership skills, acquiring a new digital technologies and use of them, and entering new international markets as the third option. Specific enterprises, for example, production company Bucher Municipal, which is located in Ventspils and producing street cleaning vehicles or machines, organize also their own training programs for staff, but we as higher education institution have very close cooperation with this company, including practice for students and other things. And the learning by doing approach for knowledge creation, dissemination, and entrepreneurship shows the necessity of changing way of thinking and taking responsibility. Universities started the study program Business Academy based on a Finnish team academy concept, and now already third year students created their own business agency while studying, and it helps in this engagement process in study and business. Thank you for your attention. I'm ready to try to ask to answer some questions.
Thank you so much, Dasha, for a very interesting presentation. I see we have a question already from Marta. I think Marta was first, and then Seya.
Yes, thank you so much. This was really interesting listening to you. I just had a question regarding what you mentioned at the end, that you said that innovative enterprises are developed more in regional cities. So maybe I missed a little bit point, but around that conceptualization of regionalized cities, but also you mentioned that collaboration is crucial. So I was also wondering if you could look into or have looked into what kind of collaboration and whether those are also localized, or if you could see some differences there. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Crucial, I mean, more, yeah, this collaboration, it comes better in the level of municipality and in regional level, but there is some, I don't know how to say better, misunderstandings with some kind of bureaucratic and administrative functions in state level, like in ministries, agencies which are making or controlling projects and so on, and therefore I think we need to some kind of use this communication, because some kind there are catastrophic actually this collaboration, not collaboration but communication. Especially if we are talking about state level projects, then there are some differences of interpretation and understanding. I'm not sure what I answered, but I tried to.
Okay, Seya also has a question for you.
Sorry, I forgot that from the earlier, but I have a question. It was interesting to know, since I know that Latvia is in some kind of regionalization process in generally. So I wanted only to know that if are there institutions or organizations which are coordinating a specific sector or in the regions, in the facilitator, which are so common. For instance, in Finland, we have every sector and every municipality, and they make this coordination work. Since the things are so fragmented, they coordinate and they make proposals, and developers, or are the developers, are they then this public administration, or possibly also your university, but are there specific other institutions which are facilitating and coordinating and developing regionally?
Thank you. Yeah, we have Ministry of Regional Development,
yes,
which is like coordinating all things related to regional development, and region agencies also we have, but maybe this channel should be more improved, because also ministry we have in one region, and there are a lot of things that they are related only to this capital region, while we, as I mentioned, we are very monocentric state, and on paper it looks very good, but when we come to realization, it's different sometimes.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Dacia? If not, I can ask one in the meantime, because I also have a question for you. And that is, okay, we can take Roman first, maybe. Go ahead, Roman.
Hello, I just have a question about a little bit about the responsibilities of the region in the country. Because, for example, in the Swedish context, there is a regional government, and the regional government has responsibility for healthcare, for public transport, and for economic development. And that responsibility has been transformed to the regional government in the end of the 1990s, beginning of the 2000s. So I'm wondering to what extent, or what are the formal responsibilities of the region?
Okay, thank you for question. Actually, more responsibilities we have also in municipality level and in the state level, regional level. They are coordinating some kind of projects, and in all industries. We don't have some kind of like regional level responsibility. More or less, it's focused on municipalities actually. Education, and secondary education, higher education. It is in ministry are located like this responsibility and agencies, but more or less on municipality level. It is because we don't have such as regional level responsibility, I guess.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? I can post mine then. I was wondering if you could say something more about this sort of, you talked about the sort of role, like that there was a region with a lot of specialization, and also that there are a lot of sort of new startups emerging. I was wondering, to what extent are these startups coming from, you're mentioning the important role of universities here, at least in sort of facilitating the startup processes and such, but are there any, where are these entrepreneurs sort of coming from mostly? Are they related to new industries? Are they related to sort of research in the universities, or are they, and spin-off from there? Are they mostly spin-offs from the industries and the specialized industries that are there? Are they embedded in the sort of regional industrial structure, or to what extent?
Well, thank you. Yes, I would say both, because we have some companies which started in our university and as well in Ventspils High Technology Park in cooperation with business incubators. And for now we have this company Azeron, which is producing these keys to not keys, but panel for games, video games, and they are working around the world right now. But it started in Ventspils High Technology Park, and there was some students and other just they like more or less these video games, and they started to think how to organize this process differently. And now they're selling their accessories to around the world, and as well also other. I think in region we started because we also have a IT faculty, and there was some enterprises which arises from this faculty and students. They come together, and managers and programmers and so on. They started this, but also it comes from from idea of inhabitants of, for example, some producing, they're producing cider or like we also start just looking around and maybe have also these fishing companies and these innovations also related to specific environment around them. But I would say both.
Thank you. We have time for one quick question if anybody has anything. If not, I would like to ask you to also applaud here for Dacia and
Thanks.
for everybody that is presented here. I guess this concludes this session, but it will the sort of geographies of responsible innovation track will continue after a 10-minute break. I'm not sure if it's a new room then, Elisa. It's a new room. Okay, so then we have to log on to the next link.
Yeah, you can find the next link from the program, like on the website. So
yeah, perfect. I hope to see many of you there, and time for a little coffee break, I guess. So thank you so much, everybody, and see you again soon.
thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.